Hi there, my name is John. I'm one of the organizers of Fringe live stream. I'm currently sitting on the mouth of the Credit River in Mississauga, Ontario, which is the original home of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and the Ojibwe Chippewa. This is also the original home of the Mississauga of the Credit.
Tansei, Buju. My name's Josh Longo, and I'm coming to you from Amiskwichi, Waskahigon, colonially known as Edmonton, which are the traditional lands of the Cree, the Dene, the Saulteaux, the Nakota Sioux, the Métis Nation, and tons of other indigenous tribes. And I also want to pay tribute to my homeland, Saugeen First Nation out in Ontario, which is the Anishinaabe territory. Hi, hi.
Well, hello, hello, hello. This is live. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for Grade 5 website camp. I'm Laura Ann Harris. I go by she, her pronouns. Before I begin, I have a couple bits of housekeeping. First of all, I wanted to thank Jonathan, Carolyn, and Keith for running this whole Fringe live stream business this summer and keeping the Fringe spirit alive. And I just want to give them a round of applause because I think they're doing such wonderful work for artists and they're working so hard. And we all appreciate it since most of the Fringes, have transferred into a virtual model of some sort and they're not doing any in-person performances. So thank you so much. I also watched Personal Demon Hunter last week, and I was really moved by Velvet Wells's land acknowledgement. So I wanted to expand upon my own. So just one moment. I acknowledge with respect the Onondaga First Nation of Indigenous peoples, the firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, whose land Syracuse, New York now stands. And I also acknowledge the past storytellers as well as the future voices of Indigenous people, whether it be about climate change, land rights, environmental rights, or the right to clean drinking water. There's still so many communities across North America who do not have access to that. In addition, I acknowledge the missing and Indigenous women whose cases have not sought justice. And we see you, we remember you, we hold you in our hearts, and we seek justice for your cases. So I'm just going to describe myself for anybody who needs that for this evening. I'm a white woman in their mid 30s. I have sandy blonde hair. I'm wearing a black shirt with some gold specks. And I have an air of desperation and a need to be loved. So, and off screen, I have this little red bowl. Fun fact about this bowl, actually, it belonged to my mother. And she used to bake all of our baked goods growing up out of this like red bowl set. So did my dad too, actually. But I just always find it really funny how an object can bring back such nostalgia. When really it's just like a hunk of plastic, but it brings back such delicious memories from my childhood. And I hope that I can create something equally delicious for you tonight. Now, inside the bowl are these different multicolored pieces of paper. On each piece of paper, there is a story title, and I'm just going to randomly pick a story. And that's the format for this show tonight. It's a little bit different, very experimental, very outside my comfort zone. But yeah, and with that warning, there's not going to be a traditional story arc. Random themes will come up. Oh, excuse me, I burped. Must have been the salmon. Um, yeah, but I think that randomness, is much like life. There's ups and downs and all arounds. Yeah, and some of the stories might be, a minute long, some might be longer, so they're going to vary in length as well. I tend to tell about 8 to 12 stories per show when I've been running this, so that's another indication as well. The other thing, last thing, promise, actually two more things. There is going to be a pinned comment for the donation button for tonight. Please hit it, and part of the proceeds are going to Lebanon's Red Cross after the devastating events that happened this week. Another thing that I'm doing that's a bit different. So I'm actually reading poetry from other poets, and I'm trying to do this because I want to amplify and give voice to other queer POC artists, and and try to spread the word about their work because I think they do just beautiful work as poets. So I'm going to be doing that. Now I'm going to open up with a piece that my friend Amy Higgins wrote. And she was doing this really cool initiative in which you donate $10 to a charity of your choice. And then she sends you a questionnaire and you fill it out. And then she writes a poem inspired by that questionnaire. So this is my poem, and I thought it was really apropos for this evening. And it's called Poem for Laura. I used to worry my family would lose me at the airport, like the kid in Home Alone 2. But really, they gripped my hand so tight it hurt. On the plane, I always claimed the window seat because I knew I had to be vigilant. Couldn't ever stop looking at the soft curtains of cirrus clouds, the spangled city lights. I still love warm baths and back rubs, so nothing's really changed, except for this. The person I most admire, these days, it's Cardi B. I just love her. I think she's great. I think she's a good mom. And she's just badass. I just love Cardi B. When I was young, I went to a lot of summer day camps. I hope I'm not alone in this. I never went to one of those camps that you went overnight for like a week or 4 weeks. I'm afraid I would have gotten too homesick. But I went to daytime summer camps, kind of like dance camp, drama camp, held in the middle school theater in Langford, badminton camp at Commonwealth Pool and Rec Center, and science camp and website camp at Camosun College. And when I was trying to research the show, I actually had a hard time remembering specific events from those camps. And I don't even think I made a single friend during that time. Part of it had to do with the fact that I was a loner. I was extremely shy, and I'd much prefer sitting in my room reading my book at night. Full of pimples, awkward as F, and I wasn't particularly crafty. There was always this huge emphasis on crafts at this camp. I've never been talented at crafts. My mom can paint almost anything, can do calligraphy. My grandma was a professional wedding cake decorator and knitted all our sweaters growing up. Me, I did not instill any of those talents. Now, the other emphasis that they had at these camps was to bring all the children together and create lasting bonds. Things like go for hikes or go to Goldstream Park or take a day trip to the aquarium and play every single child's game imaginable. I don't even know how many times I played Duck Duck Goose and Simon Says. I leave out the improv games because I actually liked those as a teenager and adult, but the other games were so monotonous. And I get it. I really do. I know that it's important to socialize us and help us communicate with others. But for me, it did the exact opposite. It just emphasized how different I was from anyone else, something I still feel to this day. Random story time. Wasn't invited. I was actually really kind of afraid I would pull this story out first, but maybe it's better that way. So I'm in grade 12, and we're doing a Shakespeare scene study, and I'm playing Juliet, the famous kissing scene, and we did a 4-night run in front of an audience in our drama class. And we were really bonding as cast members. There were various scenes, and we were all kind of crammed into Mr. Deming's classroom, and that was our green room at night. And after the last performance, I knew the quintessential event was going to happen. I was going to go to a high school cast party. I just like could not wait. Okay, I was waiting for this moment forever. And I knew that it was the one thing on my bucket list for high school that I needed to do. So there was a rumor that one girl, another cast member in a different scene, was going to be hosting. And I awaited the invitation. But it never came. And so at the end of the night, we're all very excited, congratulating each other on a fantastic run. And I crept up to the person who was hosting the party and I said, "Hey, I heard you're having a party tonight." "Yeah, Laura, you're not invited." "Oh, why is that?" "Well, you don't drink. So, yeah, you're not invited." "Excuse me? Laura, you're not invited." That just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I slowly put on my jacket, put my backpack on my back, and walked out of the high school alone to my car. And I drove home. And I never talked about it again. Nobody did. but it really emphasized how different I was from everyone else. I mean, what does it matter if I don't drink? It's not going to ruin anybody's day. In fact, probably, there's going to be less vomit on their couch. But I also didn't seek an apology either. I just ignored it. Years later, I reconnect with this person and they seem great. They seem really nice. We've had friendly chats, no issues. It's water under the bridge, as they say. But every once in a while, when I see a Facebook post or an Instagram post of them being a rah rah feminist, it makes me question, have you changed? I think you've grown. I hope you've grown. This is fun not having an audience, It's like a confessional booth. I was brought up Catholic. Okay. Serendipity in Chicago. So this is a recent memory from my life. A lot of weird, serendipitous, good things happened to me in my life. If you have seen my previous show, I met my husband on a plane. But there were a lot of unexplainable things that happened to me while I was on a trip to Chicago in the fall of 2018. My friend Jordan was there for work, and he invited me to go on a theater vacay with him, and of course I said yes. And within 48 hours, we saw 4 productions. It was fabulous. We went to see The Shipment by Jean Lee. We saw at the Annoyance Theater The Holy Fuck Hour, which was absolutely wild. And we went to go see a show called Downstate by Bruce Norris at Steppenwolf Theater, the first time that I've ever been there. And then we saw the new Futurists. It was an abundance of theater riches, and believe me, I miss going to the theater so hardcore. But yeah, there were some strange things that happened along the way. The first thing was on the Friday night, and we were sharing a Lyft share. We were doing a Lyft share. I think you know what that is, where you can pick up multiple people in a car. So first it was us, and then we drove to another spot and we picked up somebody else. And then we drove to the theater. And the driver said, "Oh, you're all getting off here." And the person was sitting in the front seat who we didn't know. And I said, "Oh, are you going to see The Shipment?" And I will never forget this. The performer, well, I gave it away. But anyway, the performer turned to me and he said, "I'm in the show." And he literally sashayed away with so much sass. Later that night when we saw the show, he did a ballroom dance routine, voguing, solo, for 5 minutes. It was unbelievable. So that's a little bit of coincidence. I mean, obviously, it can be just written off as coincidence. I mean, we were going to the same place, we were in the same neighborhood. I'll write this off for now. The second weird thing that happened was you actually have to call Steppenwolf in the morning to get rush tickets. That's the only way that they do it. So we called, and I was on hold for half an hour, and then I got through, thankfully. And I was in the middle of the transaction when my phone cut out. Fuck. And I know from being a box office clerk myself, there was no chance in hell that those tickets were going to still be there. I just was like, yeah, they're gone. But even so, there was something in my heart that just said, just try one more time. So I called again, and I waited another half an hour. And when I got the person, they were like, "Oh, we were just talking about you. Yeah, this show is sold out, but we'll honor your order." I'm sorry, what? Are you magical wish fairies who just spread goodness all over the world? Who are you? Who are you, Steppenwolf box office clerks? Jesus. And it ended up being one of my favorite productions that I've ever seen. So it was magic. Then the last thing that happened, we went out to brunch, and our waiter was really, really cool and professional. At one point, Jordan leaned over and said, "Hey, do you think that waiter is the owner of this restaurant?" And I was like, I don't know, maybe. Should we ask him? Jordan immediately said, no, 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 no. And of course, when the waiter came over to me, I said, my friend and I were remarking about how professional you were. And it kind of made us wonder, are you the owner of this restaurant? And this waiter just blossomed. He just lit up. And he said, no, I'm not the owner of this restaurant, but I try to make everybody feel welcome. And in fact, I used to be the head waiter at the Four Seasons in Whistler. And of course, we started gabbing about being Canadian, and I gabbed about being from BC. And then he took it a step further and he wrote down all the best places to eat in Chicago on a piece of paper. He took time to do that, even though there was a huge waiting list outside and it was a very packed restaurant. He did that for us. And again, you can write all these things off as merely like little tiny coincidences, but it didn't mean that it didn't make it any less magical. Now, my friend Jordan was always attracted to the dark, and I've always been attracted to the light. And I'm so glad that some of my magic rubbed off on him that weekend. Queer content. So, my brother is 5 years older than me, and when he was hitting puberty, he started posting women in bikinis on his wall, and he would line them up like a border, like a wallpaper border. I don't know where he got these photos. His friends, my dad, I kind of doubt it, but it probably was from like a swimsuit edition or something, probably from somebody's dad or mom, I don't know. And I found these women very attractive, and it stirred a lot of feelings in me as a little girl. Somehow, I got a hold of these pictures. I have no idea how. I just grabbed like 3 or 4, and I put them on my walls. Now, when friends came over, I quickly would explain, I'm trying to be more like my brother. But really, I wasn't trying to be more like my brother. I had feelings for those photos. Now, I quickly took them down because I could sense my friend's reaction was of shock, and it made me feel very embarrassed. So I took them down. Years later, these feelings kind of came up in me when I was about 15 or 16, and they made me feel very uncomfortable. So I went to my mom, who I would go to about absolutely everything and everything. Anything and everything? That's what I mean to say. For advice. And I'll never forget what she said. Oh, all women find other women attractive. I'm sorry, what? Yes, all women find breasts attractive. Doesn't mean that you're gay, Laura. And really, that's all it took to convince me. But this is something I'm still unpacking since she passed away and trying to rectify with. And that is all I'll say about that. Okay, now we're going to move on to my friend Molly Cross Blanchard's poetry chapbook. It's available through Rahilla's Ghost Press. I'm going to put a link after the show, and it's called I Don't Want to Tell You. And she is a Métis writer from Vancouver, originally from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And and I think she's the managing editor of Room magazine. My picture has frozen, so hopefully it's okay. I'll just keep going. Anyway. We all know lying is the love's smoothest moving vehicle. I have this fantasy lately, hey, that we both show up at the movies alone and you'll say, "What you seeing?" And I'll say, "Star Wars." And you'll say, "Me too." We'll decide to split a bag of popcorn because we're sensible, sit with a seat between us. After a ton of buttery finger brushing, you'll say, "I've missed you," and "I've changed." Come home? And I won't even need to answer because we're already kissing. We skip all the weird stuff and go straight to cohabitating in a third floor walk up above a play park. We put some children there, a community garden, our handprints in cement. Later, we move to the island and our grandkids visit. They want to know the story of how Grandma and Grandpa fell in love. After I told our tale, you'll say, "I have a confession. I wasn't actually going to see Star Wars." And everyone will smile and wipe small tears from their cheeks. I'm still frozen. I'm just going to quickly stop my video and restart it and see if that works. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I think I froze there for a second, at least on my end. So I think you could still hear me, but yeah, I think I was frozen. Anyway. A tale of two proms. So in high school, I went to prom twice. Once with my friend Brian and once with my friend Michael. I'll first talk about my friend Brian. We knew each other from church. We were both altar servers and we became friends. I had a huge crush on Brian at first. He had that classic Leonardo DiCaprio, Nick from Backstreet Boys, blonde hair, cropped ever so slightly on either side, and it's just an even cut. He was so attractive. Anyway, we became friends and he invited me to his prom. Now, it was super exciting to me because, you know, he was going to a different high school and I was in grade 11, he was in grade 12, and it just gave me a lot of status to go to somebody else's prom. I borrowed a dress from Costume Stock from my drama teacher, Miss Unger, and I went and I felt like $1 million. It was just an amazing night. There was a dinner. It was incredible. We danced all night. It was amazing. A couple months later, Brian and I were attempting to date. I say that really loosely. And at a certain point in time, I just was not vibing. My body was not vibing with his body. It was just really weird. And so one night I said to him, "You know what, Brian, is it okay with you if we just stay friends?" And he said, "Yeah, that's fine." And we just went on being friends. A couple months later after that, we went to go see a movie. And as we were driving home, he said, "Laura, I have something to tell you." And I thought, oh, what's going on? And so we parked at the base of my aunt and uncle's house on Triangle Mountain in Victoria. There was this beautiful scene of the Western communities. The lights are out. It was very romantic. It was very much like a movie scene. And my friend Brian turned to me and he said, "Laura, I'm gay." And he started to cry. And I had never heard anyone say that to me before in my life. We didn't do any sort of sexuality classes in school, but somehow, even despite not knowing what this all meant, in my body, I knew exactly what was going on. And I just started to cry too. And I said, "Oh, it's okay, honey. It's okay, honey. It's okay, honey." And at a certain point, I said, "You know, a couple months ago, when I told you I didn't want to go out with you, I think it was because of this." And he said, "I was so relieved when you said that. I really thought you were going to say that you were in love with me." And then we just started to laugh and laugh and laugh because we were coming to this grand conclusion that we both weren't attracted to each other. And it was such a wonderful moment that I'll never forget. Now, the second prom that I went to was with my friend Mike. And again, we were attempting to date, but it was just not, again, I just wasn't vibing. But we still went to the prom as friends. I wore this really sexy black dress with long fringe down the front all the way to the floor. I bought it in an adult store. It was $300. Nobody else bought my dress. I didn't go to a prom store. I went to an adult store and bought this dress. And I remember feeling just like $1 million. I felt like a movie star. I had my hair kind of in waves, blonde waves with red lipstick, and I took pictures with absolutely everyone. And we had a wonderful evening. Again, about a year later, Mike and I had been hanging out a lot, even post high school, and we'd watch movies together and just drive around town. And at one point, he was driving me to his place to watch a movie, and he just turned to me and said, "Laura, I'm gay." And I said, "Yeah, I know, dude." And we just started to laugh and laugh and laugh along Sherbourne Avenue late at night. So, with that, I went to 2 proms with 2 wonderful gay men. So, analyze that, will ya? Aw, Leah the angel. So, I would be remiss not to mention Leah in this storytelling show. She was my mother's favorite. Whenever I mentioned Leah to my mom, she'd say, "Oh, I love Leah," or "Leah's such an angel." Every single life decision that Leah made, my mom would compare my life decision to hers. And you would think that would really bother me, but it actually didn't. Because sooner or later, my mom would just have to be convinced that I wasn't going to be on the same path as Leah, and she would just have to accept me for who I am. And also, I couldn't argue with my mom. Leah is a wonderful person. Now, trying to narrow down a story with Leah and Lai is super hard. I couldn't pick just one. There were times where we would have sleepovers at our house in Machosen, at our beautiful house in Machosen. We'd refurbish old jeans into purses. We'd laugh hysterically at the mall wandering around. And Leah has the most beautiful, full laugh I've ever heard. But actually, oh, and then, the one classic time that we were together, we were in Machosen on a swing set, and across the street there was a horse standing majestically. And I turned to Leah and I just said, "Horses are so beautiful." And then the horse violently peed so hard. It was like spraying mist into the air. And it was so funny. And we both lost it. But my favorite story about Leah actually happened recently. After my friend Jordan passed away, my friend Leah and I went out for dinner, and she drove me back to my dad's house where I was staying in Victoria. And she was one of the only people I told about the events that took place leading up to discovering Jordan had passed away. And it was a very difficult story. Leo was completely wrapped, didn't speak at all. And at a certain point in time, my chest tightened and I just burst into tears. And she said, "It's okay. Let the pain out. Just let it out." And then she started to cry. And I think you could just say, "Oh, that's the universality of grief." Anybody would be affected by that story. I don't know if that's true. It takes a certain person to be so emotionally open and affected and generous with their patience and empathetic listening, as Leah is, because she really is an angel. Okay. Is it? Okay, this one wants to be told. It just fell out of the bowl. Frustrated little girl. When I was about 3 or 4, I started going to see a speech language pathologist, which is ironic because that's what my husband does now. I went to go see one for 4 years because I had word retrieval problems. I could see an object, know what that object was, but couldn't connect the brain to my mouth to be able to say that object clearly and articulatively. I don't know if that's a word, with articulation. And this caused a lot of frustration and anger within myself because I would know what I want. I wanted to say it, but I couldn't say it. Years later, teachers thought I had dyslexia as well. That was never diagnosed, but I wouldn't put it past them. I actually feel like at times I feel very dyslexic. And certainly my word retrieval problems still happen to this day. But in any event, it made me really angry a lot of the time as a little girl. So much so that if I didn't like what somebody said to me, I would get aggressive and get into fights. I'd often strangle little girls. I'm deeply remorseful of this, and one of the worst instances was me strangling a little girl at the Commonwealth pool. And of course, luckily, my teacher was there and she intervened and took me aside and brought me into the hot tub to talk to me. Obviously, she made me apologize, and but she didn't make me feel bad. She listened to me and understood what I was going through, and I did my best to never do that again. I think there might have been one or two other instances in my young childhood where that happened, but certainly it was not an everyday occurrence after that point because I was deeply embarrassed. And I still am to this day. Okay, I'm gonna read another poem. This is from my friend Karen Nielsen. She graduated from the University of British Columbia with an MFA in creative writing. So did Molly. I don't know if I mentioned that. They are a queer poet from Vancouver. And I'm going to read a poem called Icebreakers for the Grieving. If your grief were a color, what color would it be? Describe your grief to the person next to you. Feel free to overshare. If you're grieving a person, take a step forward. If you're grieving for a place, take a step to your right. If you're grieving for yourself, stay where you are. Contemplate your mortality. This is more of a solo exercise. How long has it been since the event that caused your grief? Line up against the wall from the most to the least recent. Remember, this is not a commentary on your suffering. Find a partner. Role play the most awkward interaction you've had with a friend or family member when you tried to talk about your grief. Take a sticker with the color of your grief, see question 1, and stick it to your forehead. Find everyone with the same color. Introduce yourselves. In your group, collaborate to make a list of all the inappropriate places you've cried. Assign scores based on their level of inappropriateness. For example, 4 points for public transit, 10 for a first date. The person with the highest score wins a snack-sized candy bar. Please come forward to collect your prize. Do you feel better? Please discuss. And this collection of poetry is also available at Rahila's Ghost Press, so I will post a link there. My favorite handbill story, oh my goodness. So again, the Fringe has been such a monumental experience to my life as an artist. And I have to talk about one of my favorite stories along the road. Ironically, it happened at my first Fringe with my solo show Pitch Blonde in Victoria. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what handbilling is, I'm sure you all do, it is such a grind for an artist. It's really hard work. Not only are you selling your show, you are selling yourself, which for me, a lot of my work was so closely connected to who I am. So it made me feel super icky. And, you know, you'd often be met with like passive aggressive remarks and people not wanting to give a shit about who you are. And it just absolutely sucked. But I walked up to a group of people in a lineup in 2007. I'm 22 at this point, and it's really my first Fringe. And I'm trying to handbill to a group of women because I think, oh, that's my target audience. And they quickly said, no, we're not interested. I slumped away and I heard a voice from the other end of the line. Hey, girly, what you selling? What you selling? And I think, have I been transported to the streets of New York City, but yet I am on Pandora Avenue in Victoria? And I go up to this guy, and he's actually with this group of women. And he looks at my handbill and he says, ah, is this show about Judy Holliday? Judy Holliday? Yes, it's about Judy Holliday during the McCarthy era. Oh, yeah, she was real fat. She was real fat. And I think, I don't know if 150 pounds is really that fat. Oh my goodness. And she was dumb. Yeah, she was real dumb. I'm like, yeah, she played a dumb blonde character, but she had like an IQ of 172. Wow, Roberta, this girl's doing a show about Judy Holliday. Remember from Born Yesterday? She was from Born Yesterday. God, she was fat. She was so dumb. She was so dumb. And then he says to me something that has never been said to me in my entire life. You have a perfect nose. Has anybody ever told you you have a perfect nose? No, nobody's ever told me that before. It is so straight. It is such a straight nose. Did you get work done? Did you get work done on this nose? No, I never got work done on this nose. Like friggin', I've thought it was like a honker for my entire life. How many people fit in your theater? I don't know, like 100? Okay, we're gonna fill it. We're gonna fill the theater. Don't you worry, girly, we're gonna fill it. And after that interaction, I have to admit, a lot of my sales went up, and I did start to fill the theaters. And in fact, I even sold out my last show. So I don't know if it was him and his like mobster ways. I have no idea. But never underestimate the power an audience has. You make our lives, and we would be nothing without you. So we thank you as Fringe artists. Thank you. First lesson in loss. When I was about 3 or 4, my family went down to Beecher Bay, a beautiful sandy West Coast beach. The horizon spread out in front of me, and if you ever met that magic spot where the sky meets the ocean, you'd fall off into another galaxy. Everything was so huge in front of me, including this big yellow, white, blue, and red beach ball. I waddled down to the water and rested the ball on the surface of the water. I wanted to try something, so I let it go. It drifted away from me. A wave swept up and the ball moved further and further away from me towards that magic horizon. A sense of panic creeped up and I started to walk into the ocean to retrieve my ball back. I felt a tug on my arm and my mom said, "No." Why? The ball is just right there. Just let it go, Laura. It's already gone. Why? I had all the power in the world to go in and get my ball back. It is just right there. But I didn't go out and retrieve the ball. I just stood along the shore, motionless, watching the ball move further and further away from me. It was gone forever. Oh, my brother, Dave. So my brother Dave is 5 years older than me, and we are vastly different people. In his grade 4 class, he wrote a short story about the cardiovascular system, and I wrote something about detectives. My brother was a really good brother. He would defend me on the playground if I was getting bullied, and every year for my birthday, he played a little record, and it was the Happy Birthday Lisa song from The Simpsons, but instead of Lisa, they actually replaced it with Laura. Happy birthday, Laura. And then it literally boomed in the house. He would blare it on my birthday and run around the house laughing. But he can also be like such a little shit. He pretended to be dead and made me drag him around the house, and then he would pin me down with a blanket and try to suffocate me. It was so annoying. But eventually, he ignored me, and that was around the time when he started high school. Thank goodness I wasn't that interested to him. Like, just thank goodness he had better things to do. Years later, I was performing a lot and doing various shows. And I went to his new apartment downtown in Victoria. He was doing med school. And I saw that he had kept some of my clippings and programs and tickets. And he put them all together and he framed them and put them on his wall. And I thought, this almost makes up for you making me drag you around our carpet as a little kid. Almost. Almost. Grade 6 elementary school talent show. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I pulled this story. I absolutely love it. So, my friend Carla and we were neighbors. She lived in the cul-de-sac just next to my house, and we would constantly watch movies together in my basement. And the one movie that we watched was Muriel's Wedding. Now, if you know it, it's kind of raunchy, and it definitely is rated R, and we should not have been watching this movie. I mean, we were 11 years old and it was rated R, and we were watching it in my basement. I don't know how this got past my parents. They were pretty liberal about the movies that I saw, but I actually don't understand what happened. Anyway, we're watching this movie, and there's this pretty infamous scene where Toni Collette brings home a guy and they start making out. He's having trouble with their zippers. The beanbag chair explodes, and Toni Collette's character just starts screaming with laughter. Something crashes into the window. It's like everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And then suddenly, two naked men come out into the living room to see if Toni Collette's character, Muriel, is okay. And during all this, Carla is laughing so hard. She's slapping my leg. She's crying. She's rolling around on the ground. And I've never seen such a reaction to a scene in my life. It was hysterical. And I think maybe like she had her sexual awakening then. I'm not going to place it on that film, but it's certainly like it felt like she was having some sort of moment. And the other thing about this film that we really took away was the music of ABBA. Now, this was way before Mamma Mia, and this was way before the sequel of Mamma Mia. But the thing that happened in the film was that Toni Collette and Rachel Griffith, they do a lip sync on stage to Waterloo by ABBA. And after watching that performance, we just absorbed all of the music of ABBA. We just friggin' loved it. We ate it up. And then at one point, we were supposed to do a presentation for our class, our grade 6 class. And we did it on the band ABBA. And we made up dance routines to Dancing Queen, Waterloo, Knowing Me, Knowing You, Money, Money, Money. I think I liked Money, Money, Money the best because we were throwing Monopoly money into the air. Our classmates were bemused, but I don't think they really cared one way or the other. But the icing on the cake for this moment in our lives was our grade 6 talent show. And we decided to recreate the lip syncs, part of the lip syncs from Muriel's Wedding. And we put on matching outfits. I think either I wore all black, she wore all white, or we both wore all white. I can't remember. And we were going to do a lip sync to Dancing Queen and Waterloo in front of the entire school. Now, not only was the entire school there, all the faculty and staff and our parents. Yes, our parents were at this talent show, but we didn't care. We were super excited and jazzed to do this. And so when it came for our time to perform, we walked on stage and we posed and we danced and lip synced and sassed the most we ever have sassed at any point in our lives. And I pointed and I made direct eye contact with people in the audience, and I flipped my hair around and I lip synced perfectly. And I became a performer that day. I lived for it. Now, the cherry on top of this story is that somebody recorded this. I don't know who actually has this recording, but it was hilarious when we saw it. And it panned to our parents. And I've never seen them laugh so hard in their entire lives. Now, I don't think it was like a humiliated, haha, they're stupid, they're dumb kind of laugh. It was more sort of like this joyous, I can't believe that they're doing this, they're so much braver than us kind of laugh. That's what I think it was. But it was such an amazing experience to watch them laugh on screen. And I think I learned the first rule of comedy that day, which is if you take things seriously, there is humor. So that's what I learned that day as well. I love that story. Best meal I ever had. So this actually has a little bit of context. So I won an award in grade 12, and we had to go to this award ceremony. There was a dinner, there was an introduction by my high school drama teacher, and then I did an acceptance speech. It was all done at this like fancy schmancy golf course place. And at the end of the night, I met one of the other recipients, and they were winning an award for culinary arts. They were off to culinary arts school in Stratford, Ontario, and I met them, and their name was Carl. And they were very polite, very nice, and I thought they were a little bit cute. And I just kind of put it in my back pocket and forgot about them. After my first year of university, I experienced my first heartbreak, and my mom thought that it would be do me some good to cheer me up, and she sent me to Stratford, Ontario on a trip by myself. Now, this does not feel like the kind of experience that you have as a child, and as you can tell, I've had a pretty, good childhood. I cannot complain about anything. This felt like a bit extra. And so I went and I saw a bunch of theater, and it was such an amazing experience, especially after first year university. And I decided, why not call up on this guy named Carl, who's there and he's training as a chef. And we hooked up and we met, and I could sense that he was sort of into me, which was a little bit confusing because the other person who I had liked did not like me back, and I just was confused that other people could be attracted to me. Like, what is going on here? So the first night, he was kind of stroking my hand and very much starting to make moves on me. And the next night, he surprised me and he said, "Would you like to come to my restaurant where I'm training and have a meal there?" And I thought, "Oh, Carl, I don't have anything to wear." And I really didn't. I think I had like one summer dress with me. Ladies, just bring a dress. Doesn't matter if you're going to use it or not, just put it in your bag and bring it. You never know when opportunity might strike. And I didn't even have any shoes. I actually had to go out and buy shoes for this dinner. So I go and I have this new little outfit on. And I then have a 5-course meal. I'm 17 years old. I've never been in a fancy restaurant before. A 5-course meal with alcohol pairing, wine pairing. I've barely drank in my life. And I am drinking wine, having some of the best food. I don't remember what I ate. Was it a puff pastry? Was it steak and frite? I don't know. I don't know what I ate. I to this day, I don't remember the meal. I remember it being amazing. I remember it being the best meal of my life, but I do not want no, I don't know what I ate. But I remember the feelings I had afterwards. I felt fantastic. I felt amazing, and I felt sexy. So the best part about this meal too was it was completely free. We just had to pay a tip. It was amazing. And Carl takes me back to his place and puts on a movie. We weren't watching the movie. We started to inch closer and closer and closer together. There's fire, there's heat coming, and he puts his arm around my shoulder, and then we began to make out. And I want to say it was great, but it soon went pretty downhill. So his tongue, when French kissing me, can only be described as uh, like like a bullet hitting my mouth or some sort of torpedo, and it was hitting my teeth and my tongue, and it was very, very uncomfortable. And I tried to figure out a head placement in which I could absorb this torpedo tongue against my mouth, and I somehow made it work for me. I wasn't going to turn down a kiss, guys. I had another guy who did not like me. What am I, freaking crazy? So I just made it work, okay? And then eventually, nothing really happened. And he walked me home. And he said, "Keep smiling, Laura. You have the most beautiful smile, and your eyes light up, and your eyes smile when you smile." And I thought, oh, you gave me the best meal of my life. So this moment is kind of making up for the torpedo tongue. And we said goodbye, and I went back to Victoria, and that was that. Now, at Christmas time, I knew that Carl was coming back home to Victoria for Christmas, and so I gave him a call, and he seemed distant and not really interested in talking to me. So, yeah, I didn't give it much thought, and I just decided I'm just going to let this go. We'll always have Stratford, Ontario. And years later, I find out that Carl is actually quite an established chef, and he competes for Top Chef Canada. And I was like, oh, good for you. Good for you. And then he starts doing really well on the show. And then he wins Top Chef of Canada. So I had a tryst in Stratford, Ontario with the future Top Chef of Canada. So let that sink in. He has a restaurant in Toronto, actually, and I've been. And let's just say, it's about the same level as his torpedo tongue. So you can't win them all, can you, Carl? So anyway, my alarm went, and that's why I was slightly distracted. That's actually my time for this evening, folks. I have a little epilogue, so I want to just leave you with that. But I will say thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you sticking in there and watching this very experimental show. And again, if you haven't already done so, please hit the donate button so that part of the proceeds can go towards Lebanon's Red Cross. And I will leave you with this. A lot of people ask the standard question, what advice would you give to your younger self? Here's my attempt. There were a lot of possibilities in your life, Laura, that you didn't take. Cherish the moments that you said yes. It's okay that you're scared, feel a bit different, and are unsure about what the future holds. You did really good in first year university taking risks. You're going to fall out of love and lust a lot, but you're going to find a man with the biggest heart who's going to take care of you. You're still going to be friends with Leah, Carla, and Brian, but you're going to meet a lot of eclectic friends along your journey. Most from being a touring artist for the Fringe, to your undergrad, your graduate studies, to your job, or within the rehearsal halls of shoestring independent productions. You'll meet people randomly on the street or on a plane or even in a bakery. When you were a little girl, all you wanted was to be closer connected to people, and you've had so many opportunities for that to happen. You're going to fuck up and make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay because it's made you the person you are today. And for that, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. This really meant a lot to me that you watched. Good night and keep well and be safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, fine folk, thank you so much for tuning in to Fringe live stream. We just had Laura Ann Harris doing grade 5 website camp. As she mentioned, you can purchase a ticket to tonight's show by going to bit.ly/FLScamp. We have it right there going down at the bottom. It is capitals, are case sensitive, so please be aware of that. Oh, we just had a nice moody light change. I'm not in control of the lights. We have to deal with it. Next week, we have a show going on Tuesday, which is part of our AUC series. That is Jake Cardinal's content. We played his preview earlier after the show. Please stick around and join us for that. That'll be Tuesday, August 11th at 9 p.m. And then we're going to be back Thursday as well with Whiteface Productions, The Whiteface Cabaret. If you want to see our lineup, you can go to fringelivestream.com. We did our lottery just recently and posted about it, but if you want to see the full live sort of the full lineup, please go to fringelivestream.com and you can see everything that's happening right there. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight's show. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed tonight's performance, please do buy a ticket, but also help spread the word. Hit that share button, hit that like, send it to some friends. Ticket sales go on for the next week, and any money that is collected goes directly to the artists, and as Laura mentioned, a portion of those proceeds will be going towards the crisis happening in Lebanon. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see y'all soon. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening. Take care, everybody.